Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. We're joining you live from the CNN News 18 Primetime Studio, presented by Schneider Electric Smart Home Solutions. US President Donald Trump might be undergoing a change of heart. At least the recent change of tone signals the same. What seems like Trump being on digital warpath against India, marked by occasional snarky social media comments and remarks at press conferences, to anti-India comments by his aides, is perhaps witnessing a tactical reset. The question on everyone's mind is this going to last? And what triggered this? Was it the fact that India refused to budge from its national interests despite intense scrutiny? Or the fact that BRICS nations have responded with unity on the issue of tariffs? While Trump's friendly remarks may or may not translate into a new chapter in the India-US bilateral ties, leaders of both countries have now signaled an attempt at the very highest level of moving forward from a period of acrimony, at least to further trade deal negotiations. For this to sustain, we do need a reset of the narrative on the Russia-Ukraine war from America and ceasing of the singling out of India. Could that be on the cards too? That and more coming up with our guests in just a bit. Our top story today on Plain Speak, US-India trade talks and how both leaders have talked about taking forward these negotiations, and there could be a call soon between the two as well. On the show too, later, Mandya counter-protest. Hindu groups stage a show of strength in Mandya, which was hit by Ganesh Chaturthi immersion stone-pelting violence. Also on the show, we'll get you more of exactly what could have triggered the unrest in Nepal. Was a hit-and-run kind of situation, an accident, a possible trigger for why the Nepal unrest went completely out of hand. First up, let me break down for you what US President Donald Trump has said on social media platform Truth Social to announce that India and US will continue negotiations to address the trade barriers between the two countries. He further added that he looks forward to speaking with his very good friend, Prime Minister Modi, in the upcoming weeks, and that he feels certain that there will be no difficulty in coming to a successful conclusion for both countries. This, of course, seems like a very different kind of tone that has been employed by him comparing to recent remarks. And this is a second such statement that has now come to light. Returning the sentiment, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi replied, "India and US are close friends and natural partners. I am confident that our trade negotiations will pave the way for unlocking the limitless potential of this partnership. Our teams are working to conclude these discussions at the earliest. I am also looking forward to speaking with President Trump. We will work together to secure a brighter, more prosperous future for both our people." These are the kind of statements that the two leaders were used to exchanging till, of course, all of it went downhill quite a bit in context of the trade deal negotiations, the tariffs, the Russian oil buying and whatnot. But let me paint a picture to you of how this entire tussle, or at least the tone from the White House, has played out so far. So it was on July 30 that Trump had announced that 25% tariffs will be imposed on India. A day later, he actually made the comment that the Indian economy is dead. On August 6, he raised the tariffs to 50%. Remember, 25% sanctions type tariffs were imposed because of India's buying of Russian oil. A month later, following the SCO summit, Trump said that he had lost India to, quote, dark China, but shifted his stance the very next day, saying India and US ties are special. PM Modi also reciprocated and appreciated that sentiment. Trump now, as I said, has said that India and US trade talks will continue and an amicable solution will be reached soon. This is coming from the US President himself, who himself was the face of this tiff with India. Prime Minister Modi also replying to this, saying he is optimistic about the negotiations now. So it seems to be getting back on track. But what could have possibly led to this change of heart? There are many possible reasons. First of all, high tariffs risk alienating India, a key ally, and driving it closer to China and Russia. This could be the sense in the US, and this could undo decades of strengthened US-India ties. Concerns about inflation and economic fallout within the US may have also pushed Trump to show maybe greater flexibility. This could be another reason. After the tariff announcement, Trump realized perhaps by now, it's been a couple of months, that India will not relent. He himself had admitted once that Modi is a tougher negotiator than him. Prime Minister Modi's strong personal rapport with Donald Trump is also, of course, going to play a role, even though there was a little bit of lowering of these ties, combined with the discreet back-channel talks that India and US have been having, likely have influenced this change of tone. Furthermore, there are US businesses and other lobbies that have pressed the White House to ease these tensions. A lot of voices have come forward to say that we cannot risk alienating India. This is from the US's standpoint. And of course, there are business interests as well. So trade talks to continue. They're going to get back on track. There was a little bit of ambiguity on this the last couple of weeks. Is this India's quiet diplomacy working? Because remember, India hasn't gone for any tit for tat during this entire verbal spat that seems to be escalating over the last few weeks. That's coming up with our guests.
I always will. I'll always be friends with Modi. He's great. Prime Minister, he's great. I'll always be friends, but I just don't like what he's doing at this particular moment. But India and the United States have a special relationship. There's nothing to worry about.
I want Indians to think for ourselves. I want those Indians who are now defending that language to get up and say, we are free from you all. Now for over 75, 80 years. We'll mind our business, we'll take care of ourselves, refrain from using these words. Should have been that voice.
The US-India relationship is one of the most consequential relationships on the globe today. I look at this only as one more situation which will pass as there's a deeper understanding of the reality of the situation.
Let's go across to our experts joining us. Ashok Sajjanhar, former Indian diplomat, Ajay Bagga, market expert, trade expert, also with us, and Brahmachaleni, strategic affairs expert. Brahmachaleni, let me begin with you, because we are now, of course, looking at a reset of sorts as far as the tone and tenor of the relationship is concerned, after very many statements that seem to berate India from the US side, some that were also seeking to raise certain caste issues in India. What do you make of the fact that the two leaders now themselves, one-to-one, are speaking to each other, if only through social media, but also hinting at the fact that their relationship could be getting back on track?
The development is positive. And Trump's marked shift in tone on India is very interesting, because it underscores the fact that the guy can actually be quite fickle, he can change overnight. But the problem is that once you damage a relationship, repairing that relationship will not be easy. The once flourishing US-India relationship has dramatically morphed into a frosted relationship after Trump effectively declared an economic war on India. In fact, many are arguing that US-India relations have plunged to their lowest point in this century. After all, India has been singled out for secondary sanctions.
Yes.
And the US has suffered considerable loss of trust and confidence built up over 25 years.
Yes.
And Trump has opened India's eyes to the risks of depending on Washington. So even if a trade deal with India were to be finally reached, it may not be able to repair the damage. And my worry is that this relationship is critical for India's economic and military security, and is also very vital for America's own long-term interests, especially in the Indo-Pacific. And yet Trump's the damage that Trump has inflicted on the relationship, that damage will take considerable time to repair, if it can be repaired at all.
Okay, so I understand the trust deficit that you're talking about because we've all discussed this, and it's the ordinary Indian feeling today that the US cannot be trusted in the long term given what it had sought to do during these tariff negotiations or the Russia-Ukraine conflict. But don't you think, you're calling it fickle, the other way to look at it also, Brahmachaleni, before I go across to our other guests as well, is that you could call it maturity on the part of Trump. We didn't think he was capable of it, but he's showing that maturity to say, okay, you know, he's extending an olive branch of sort, or making the first move to bring a thaw in the relationship or soften the tone despite what his aides have been saying in a more confrontational manner. You don't think that if the negotiations on trade get back on track, if the trade deal is actually finalized or announced soon enough, that things could get back on track as vis-a-vis the entire relationship? You don't think other parts of the relationship will also get back on track?
Yes, but I think Trump appears to feel confident that he can secure a trade deal with India on terms more favorable than what India was willing to offer before Trump slapped India with punitive actions. So today he feels that he has brought India under pressure, that India is on the defensive, that the concessions that India was willing to provide before Trump imposed these high tariffs and secondary sanctions on India, he believes now India will be willing to offer much more.
But why? India hasn't made any, hasn't said anything to suggest that we would be willing to concede more.
Shivani, when you go to the negotiating table, you must have some leverage. The leverage that India has is theoretical, that it's the world's fastest growing major economy, that it's a huge market that that American businesses need. But in actual leverage, it's the Americans who have applied these high tariffs on India. They have singled out India for secondary sanctions. So the Americans have considerable leverage over India at the negotiating table, and India, unlike in Trump's first term, and this is an important point, in Trump's first term, when Trump stripped India of its GSP status, by stripping India of its GSP trade status, Trump affected $5.6 billion worth of Indian exports to the US. Then he also imposed tariffs on Indian aluminum and steel exports to the US. And Modi, in reaction, retaliated with counter tariffs, which eventually led to a trade deal on the eve of the G20 summit in New Delhi in 2023. And both sides then compromised in the trade deal. So India at that time believed that counter tariffs would provide some leverage in the negotiations. This time, India has refrained from any kind of response to becoming a prime victim of Trump's tariffs and secondary sanctions.
Okay, no, interesting you mentioned that, and I'll bring in Ashok Sajjanahar on that. I just feel that, the two situations of what transpired before 2023 and now, there was Pakistan, the Operation Sindoor in the mix this time, which wasn't the case earlier. Also, this time, it was a very stark difference in the tone of the US president himself, which wasn't the case last time. And maybe Indians felt that, we just have to wait and wait it out. And that approach seems to be working. We didn't have to hit out. And that was very clear from the Indian side that they're not going to do that. They're just going to allow the tempers that have flared on the US side to possibly come down. But I'll allow Ashok Sajjanahar to come in on this, on both these points. One, how do you see this change of tone? What do you think could have triggered this? And as Brahmachaleni is suggesting, could this mean that US now feels we've choked enough pressure on India, it's time to get back on the negotiation table and we could get something more out of it, which is that they could get something more out of us? Is that what they feel?
Yeah, thank you very much, Shivani, for having me on the show, and thank you for these excellent questions. So as far as this move by the United States and particularly President Trump is concerned, I think that's a very positive development. That's a very welcome move. And I think once the indication comes from, the signaling comes from the top as far as the US is concerned, as far as India is concerned, I think the negotiators will get into action and we will start talking about it. Now, as far as, let me just make one comment. President Trump's first term and second term are very, very different, not only for India, but for the whole world. And I think the whole world has realized it. All countries, and including India, were thinking that Trump 2.0 is going to be a linear extrapolation of Trump 1.0. That is not the case. Now, as far as the change in tone, why has it occurred? I think President Trump and his establishment have seen that India is not going to wilt. India is not going to capitulate. India's red lines are there to stay, so they are not going to change it. And what Mr. Trump would have thought is that as all the other countries, they have, when pressure was applied to them, when coercion was applied to them, they sort of, came with, asking for a trade deal and were willing to give whatever the US wanted.
Yes.
Not India. India said that there are, whether it is GMOs, it is dairy, it is agriculture, it is some of the other issues, that they are absolutely sacrosanct and we are not going to compromise on those. And I think those things stand. That message has gone to Trump. The second aspect, if I may mention, Shivani, also is, I think the photo ops from Tianjin also played a role, because I think what the American establishment would have thought, that we are going to be able to push India into a corner and they have no other options. By going there and by having, such a warm relationship, demonstrating a very warm relationship with both Putin and Xi Jinping, I think India has been able to send out this very clear message to the United States that India has options.
Okay.
And you did mention about BRICS also.
Yes.
As far as, the rest of the relationship is concerned, what is talked about trust, etc., etc. I think going forward, that will be an issue which we'll be able to handle, in my view. But the rest of the relationship, Shivani, is already proceeding on track. You see that there is this Yuddhabhyas exercise in Alaska between the armies of the two countries.
Okay.
That is moving very well. The 2+2 intersessional dialogue between the two countries, that was held without any problems. There was a very senior defense policy group delegation that came from the United States to India. The point I want to make is that tariff is one issue, and what our effort and attempt has been that we should not conflate this with the rest of the relationship, because the rest of the relationship, we value it, America values it. Last point I'll make here is that you see all these statements that were coming out of Peter Navarro, Scott Bessent, Howard Lutnick, they were really trying to curry favor with their boss. They thought that this is what Mr. Trump, their boss, would like to hear. So they were even amplifying the noises that were coming from Trump. I think now that Trump has started, talking positive and reaching out to the Prime Minister, and I think for the Prime Minister also it's very good, because the Prime Minister did not respond to any of the comments about the dead economy and having lost India to China and Russia and all. He only took up the positive comments.
Okay.
That shows his...
No, so as far as those comments are concerned by the likes of Navarro and all, I do feel that there was a free hand given to these gentlemen to go after India. They were trying to pick and prick India on quote-unquote sensitive issues. It seemed like there was clearly some thought put behind it. When you bring in Brahmins into a conversation or something else, that, we want some sort of a public sentiment to go against India's buying of Russian oil. None of that was successful.
They failed.
They failed at it. So I do think that I don't think it was just currying favor with their boss. I think their boss gave them a very clear free hand to do whatever needs to be done.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, to bring India onto the negotiating table. But let me take that counter question to Ajay Bagga, because while America was trying to pin pressure on India, make it a pariah, talk about how its morals are not in place because of this Russian buying of oil. Its narrative did not succeed globally, because you look globally, even news outlets or other individuals who weren't very favorable to India's positions all the time they found that this singling out was unfair. So actually the narrative was backfiring on them.
No, Shivani, I think the contrast is very clear. What a seasoned diplomat like Ambassador Sajjanhar just mentioned, or what Brahma was mentioning, versus what the Trump policy. Trump policy is failing across the world. Last night, 24 Russian drones have entered Polish airspace. Putin is trying to see how and what Europe will react. Europe is not ready militarily. Will the US come to protect NATO interests? I think Putin is playing a very strong game. Trump is just not up to it. Same thing with India. As the ambassador sir mentioned, we have to see the economic as one sphere of it. It was more of a geopolitical tax on India. It wasn't a tariff. Second, it won't go away, Shivani. Even if we stop buying Russian oil, it will become H1B. If we stop H1Bs, it will become you are sending you're outsourcing jobs to India. Something else will come in because they have to fuel the fire of the MAGA Trump base. So India is a very convenient object. You can't do the same to the Chinese. They flex muscles immediately. He's failed with Putin quite clearly. The next big but soft underbelly target is India. But India is playing the long game by not retaliating, not publicly getting down into the gutter with the likes of Navarro. Navarro is a has-been. He's outdated. He's somebody who should have been retired gracefully. Now, is Trump even reading his stuff? I don't know. Because this is strategic unpredictability that they are practicing. There are no Ambassador Sajjanhar sitting there. There is no strategy, I'm telling you. We try to build in patterns. See, in markets, what do we teach? Don't look for a pattern where there is no pattern. This is just noise. It's not a signal. Whatever he feels the next hour, he goes ahead and does. He shoots down a boat in Venezuela. He puts destroyers near Venezuela without understanding what it could lead to.
So you wouldn't put all your eggs in this basket of this thaw or in India-US relationship just yet, Ajay Bagga?
You're not getting a comprehensive trade agreement, Shivani. You should understand that there'll be limited engagements, limited detentes, limited truces that will come, but nobody is giving you a free ride. When China came into WTO in 2000 and it hollowed out the rest of the world for 15 years, there was no China in the world. Today there is a China sitting, there's a Vietnam sitting, and Europe and US have all of a sudden realized we don't make steel, we don't make aluminium, we have hardly got any copper. China has hollowed us out totally. Now, in that scenario, no one in China plus one will allow India to grow. It's going to be a fight for every single square yard. We'll have to fight. And I think it's a good thing what has happened to India because it's really raised our spine that yes, we have to be self-reliant. We will be used as an example. Why didn't he make an example of China? Europe is doing more trade with Russia than India does. Europe's exports to the entire Central Asian republics has gone up 800%. You think Tajikistan or Uzbekistan is using all that high-tech exports? It's all going into Russia. So it's a very cynical geopolitical tax. That
and it didn't work. The numbers and the figures are for everyone to see. So this whole tactic that India is funding the Ukrainian war is obviously something that nobody bought. But this labeling of it as Modi's war did not go down well with anybody in the world. And even, countries like China, Russia have come out in very strong support, unambiguous support of India since then.
And Shivani, even the guys who did deals, say Japan, a revolver to the head, put $550 billion investments, which Trump will direct. Korea, $500 billion. Then Hyundai and LG Electronics tries to put a factory up. You don't give work visas, so they brought in trainers. Then you go and arrest them, you put them in shackles and handcuffs. These are engineers, senior people of Hyundai who were imprisoned, LG Electronics.
So you're fair in that assessment that nobody really knows what they're going to get just yet as far as the Trump administration is concerned. But very quickly, Ajay Bagga, before I let you all go, Brahma Chaleni seemed to suggest that India will have to make concessions regardless of what has transpired when you get back onto the negotiation table, you'll have to give something after all this pressure has been pounded on us. What is your take on that?
It's not going to stop. The way with the bully is to stand your ground. We will give some, we will have to give something cosmetic. But remember, America first is becoming America alone. It's a failed policy, and this is a lame duck president come November 2026. They're going to lose very badly by this time next year. So it is a lame duck presidency with failed policies. I don't see a bilateral trade agreement that is off the table. It won't come. It will be minor skirmishes, and you give and take a bit.
Okay.
That's the best we can hope for. You're dealing with somebody who's strategically unpredictable. So
Okay.
he's not going to come with a comprehensive trade agreement. He's not done it with Japan or Korea. It's one-sided agreements, 15% I'll charge you, you will charge me 0, and you will give me ransom in terms of energy, defense, and investments. We can't do that.
Okay.
India will
So
not do that.
caution is really the word that needs to be kept in mind, regardless of the fact that, yes, it is a welcome thing that the tone of the relationship between the two leaders itself has changed a little bit, and that really could pave the way for things forward. I do thank all of our experts for joining us.